First of all, a lot of the information that I sourced for this video is from Magazines from the Past wiki, which is by no means a complete or comprehensive wiki of PlayStation magazines, so some of the information in this video may be slightly out of date or incorrect. The 90s was rife with various types of magazines, all in competition with each other, and video game magazines are no exception to that. So when the PlayStation came about in the mid-90s and pretty much blew the competition out of the water, everyone and their aunt wanted a piece of the action. They all wanted to publish their own PlayStation magazines. In purchasing some job lots of the official PlayStation magazine, I've managed to have a few of the unofficial magazines thrown in too. One thing I've noticed with most of these magazines is the little catchphrases they use to try and seem credible. For example, this is the first ever issue of Station Magazine. It's one that I can't really find much information on, but apparently at the time it was the most talked about PlayStation magazine in the world. I don't exactly know how that's possible with it being the first ever issue, but there's a little article that might explain it a bit more. Now this was released around the middle of the PlayStation 1's life cycle, and according to this it says British games players have been severely limited in their choice of PlayStation magazines. As we'll see in a moment, I don't think that's entirely true. Only one publication has been able to carry a demo disc every month, that being the official PlayStation magazine, but apparently this Station magazine also carried demos in each of their editions. Despite me never having seen another one of these PlayStation 1 stations, the magazine actually made it to the PlayStation 2, with Station 2 here, and this is the second edition of that. And here's the 5th edition of Station 2, but as I say, I can't really find much information on this, so I don't know how many of each magazine they actually released. Moving on now, we have a magazine from very late in the PlayStation 1's life cycle. It's PlayStation World, and this is the very first issue, which is rather huge, because apparently it has every single game up until that point reviewed in here. This first issue was published in December 1999, and PlayStation World had 124 issues and ended in the PlayStation 3 era in September of 2009. Its highest scoring games were Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, Ready to Rumble and Tomorrow Never Dies. The Last Revelation being quite a strange one, as I don't think it has anything on Tomb Raider 3 really. Next up we have Play, which is the self-proclaimed best unofficial PlayStation magazine. I think best is pretty much just the interchangeable word, because you can of course have the most popular magazine, the most talked about magazine, and I think this is just a cool little glimpse at how much competition we had at the time in terms of all these PlayStation magazines coming out. Play hilariously had a feature called Japsai, which is gaming news from Japan. It was first published in November of 1995, it's had a total of 281 issues, and it's still going today. Its highest rated game is currently Persona 4 Golden, and its lowest rated game is currently Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, at an average of 18%. The people who made Play also made a similar Sega Saturn magazine, as you can see at the top of this magazine here. But this is just an offshoot magazine with loads of tips and cheats and things like that. And notice again here that this is the UK's #1 solutions magazine. This is issue number 2, and it actually has a complete walkthrough for the original Resident Evil, which is really cool. And another complete walkthrough for Alien Trilogy. I think out of all these, this Ultimate Player is probably one I'd consider collecting for as well. Something that's not the #1 Solutions magazine, but it's actually the one that I remember more, is simply titled Solutions, and it's from the makers of Total Station. And I'm pretty sure these did all sorts of different books and magazines for different platforms. Either that or it was just called Solutions, but it was a different company entirely. Next up we have another obscure one. This is the 20th issue of PlayStation Pro, and the only one I have. And apparently it's for men who like to work less and play more. So I guess that means if you're a woman you should skip ahead to the next magazine. Here's Planet PlayStation, which started in 1999, another obscure one. And I'm pretty sure this one is aimed more at kids due to the layout and the amount of tat it tries to sell you. Although it does look like there's a woman in a thong in that particular picture. Evil Zone, I've never heard of that one. Here's a cutout from Planet PlayStation that has a lot of vouchers and things for various British activities. Next up is PlayStation Power, which is apparently the authority in PlayStation gaming. This magazine was first published in June of 1996. It has 69 issues and finished in September of 2001. Magazines from the past only recorded the highest and lowest scoring game of the first 3 issues, the highest being Fade to Black with an average of 7.7. However, here we have a review of Final Fantasy VII that got a 10 out of 10 score. Here we have Total PlayStation, which later changed its name to Total Station in 2000. First published in January of 1996, and this is issue 33. Interestingly enough, this PlayStation magazine has an advert for Station, another PlayStation magazine. This is possibly due to the fact that a lot of these magazines actually share the same publisher, which doesn't make much sense to me, but even the official magazine, which is published by Future Publishing, shares that publisher with other unofficial PlayStation magazines. Despite all these grand statements in these magazines, I think there's only one magazine that really rivaled the official PlayStation magazine, and I mean that both in terms of sales and in the quality of the writing. It's also by Future Publishing and it's called PSM2, which later became PSM3. Its first issue was in October 2000 and it finished on the 12th of December 2012. And other than the official PlayStation 1 magazine, it's the only magazine that I actually used to buy upon release. Mainly around the time Fallout 3 was coming out, so it was PSM 3 then. And that's it, that's all the different types of PlayStation magazine I have, excluding the official PlayStation magazine because I want to go into much more depth in that in a future video series. Hope you enjoyed it, please subscribe if you did, and I'll see you on the next video.